Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in.
Security teams often talk about improving detection as though the goal were simply to generate more alerts or to make a tool more sensitive. That view misses the central problem. A detection system can report activity that is harmless, and it can also fail to report activity that is truly malicious. Those two errors create different costs, demand different responses, and can push tuning decisions in opposite directions. Too many incorrect alerts can exhaust analysts and distract them from meaningful evidence, while a missed threat can allow harmful activity to continue without attention. The practical question is therefore not whether a tool can avoid every mistake. The question is how to balance the errors so the system supports the decisions people actually need to make. By the end of this episode, you will be able to explain false positives and false negatives, describe why reducing one may increase the other, and evaluate detection quality as a matter of risk rather than alert volume alone.
A false positive occurs when a security tool reports a threat, policy violation, or suspicious condition that is not actually present. A false negative occurs when a real threat or harmful condition is present, but the tool fails to identify it. These terms describe the relationship between the tool's conclusion and the underlying reality. A true positive is a correct alert about something that is genuinely present, while a true negative is a correct decision that nothing requiring detection is present. The most important distinction is that a false positive creates unnecessary attention, while a false negative withholds attention when it is needed. The terms are often confused because both represent detection failure, yet they fail in opposite directions. One produces an alert without a real threat, and the other produces no alert despite a real threat. Understanding that contrast is essential because each error changes what analysts see, what leaders measure, and how a detection rule should be adjusted.
Every detection result can be understood as a comparison between two things: what the system reports and what actually happened. The report may be positive, meaning the tool says the condition is present, or negative, meaning the tool says the condition is absent. Reality may also be positive or negative. The challenge is that reality is not always immediately obvious, so determining whether an alert was correct may require investigation, additional telemetry, user context, or later evidence. A tool does not observe truth directly. It evaluates available signals according to rules, models, thresholds, and assumptions. That is why an alert should be treated as a claim supported by evidence, not as automatic proof. The same principle applies when no alert appears. Silence only means the tool did not identify activity that crossed its detection criteria. It does not prove that the environment was free of malicious behavior, because the activity may have been invisible, unfamiliar, incomplete, or below the configured threshold.
False positives can arise for many reasons, including rules that are too broad, thresholds that are too low, incomplete context, unusual but legitimate behavior, and normal administrative actions that resemble attacker techniques. A detection may be technically consistent with its logic and still be operationally wrong for the environment where it runs. For example, a legitimate remote administration tool may generate patterns associated with unauthorized access, but the presence of that pattern alone does not establish malicious intent. The cost of false positives goes beyond the time needed to close individual alerts. Repeated incorrect alerts can create alert fatigue, reduce confidence in the detection platform, and encourage analysts to dismiss similar warnings too quickly. They can also distort performance reporting by making a system appear active without making it useful. Still, a false positive is not always worthless. It may reveal that a rule lacks context, that an approved activity is poorly documented, or that the environment has changed in a way the detection logic does not yet understand.
False negatives are more difficult to observe because the defining feature is that the system failed to call attention to something real. They may result from missing logs, disabled sensors, unsupported systems, encrypted or obscured activity, unfamiliar techniques, overly strict thresholds, outdated rules, or gaps between tools. A detection can also miss an event because it looks individually harmless, even though several related events would be suspicious when viewed together. The operational cost of a false negative depends on what was missed and how long the activity remains undetected.
A missed low-impact policy violation does not carry the same consequence as missed credential abuse, unauthorized data access, or destructive activity. False negatives can create a misleading sense of security because dashboards remain quiet and performance reports may show fewer alerts. Quiet is not the same as protected. The absence of detection must always be interpreted in light of the system's visibility, coverage, assumptions, and known limitations.
The relationship between false positives and false negatives is often controlled by a detection threshold. A lower threshold may treat weaker evidence as suspicious, which can identify more real threats but also capture more harmless activity. A higher threshold may require stronger evidence before creating an alert, which can reduce unnecessary alerts but allow subtle or early-stage activity to pass unnoticed. This trade-off appears in signature rules, behavioral analytics, anomaly detection, spam filtering, fraud detection, and many other classification systems. It is not a rigid law that every improvement in one error must worsen the other, because better data, stronger context, and improved logic can reduce both. However, when the underlying data and detection method remain the same, moving the decision boundary often shifts which type of error is more likely. Tuning therefore requires more than choosing the setting that produces the fewest alerts. It requires deciding how much evidence is enough for the specific threat, asset, and response action involved.
Context changes whether a detection result is useful. The same behavior may be routine on one system, rare on another, and prohibited on a third. User role, device purpose, time, location, application, change schedule, and known administrative activity can all affect interpretation. Prevalence also matters. When truly malicious events are rare compared with normal events, even a detector that performs well in general can produce a large number of false positives relative to true positives. This is one reason a percentage displayed on a product dashboard can be misleading when it is separated from the environment where the tool operates. Detection quality should be examined through actual outcomes, not only through a single accuracy number. Analysts need to know how many alerts were useful, what important activity was missed, how much investigation each alert required, and whether the tool improved a decision. Context does not excuse poor detection. It provides the information needed to distinguish a suspicious pattern from a meaningful security finding.
Before we continue, this episode is brought to you by the Bare Metal Cyber Academy. The Academy is a place for people who want to keep developing practical cybersecurity knowledge through clear, structured education. It is designed to help learners strengthen their understanding of security concepts, professional decisions, and the reasoning that connects technology to risk. You can visit baremetalcyber.com to explore the Academy and see the learning opportunities currently available. Topics such as detection quality become more useful when you can connect the definition to the decisions analysts and leaders must make. Now, let's return to false positives, false negatives, and the balance required to manage them responsibly.
The acceptable balance between the two errors depends on the consequence of being wrong. For a detection tied to a highly damaging action, the organization may accept more false positives because missing the activity would carry severe risk. For a rule that automatically blocks a critical business process, false positives may be especially costly because an incorrect decision could interrupt legitimate work. The response attached to the alert matters as much as the alert itself. A low-confidence signal may be appropriate for analyst review, but inappropriate for automatic containment. A high-confidence signal, supported by several independent observations, may justify a faster and more disruptive response. This is why tuning should not occur in isolation from risk, asset value, and operational impact. The goal is to set the detection and response so that the expected cost of mistakes remains acceptable. A balanced system does not treat every use case the same. It aligns sensitivity, confidence, and action with what the organization is trying to protect. No single detector is likely to capture every relevant threat without producing excessive noise. Strong detection programs, therefore, use layers of complementary visibility and logic. One tool may identify a suspicious process, another may observe an unusual network connection, and a third may reveal an unexpected account action. Each signal can be incomplete on its own, but the combination may increase confidence and reduce both false positives and false negatives. Layering also limits the consequences of blind spots because one control can detect activity, that another control cannot see. This does not mean that more tools automatically create better detection. Overlapping products can produce duplicate alerts, inconsistent labels, and fragmented evidence when they are not integrated carefully. The value comes from complementary coverage, shared context, and deliberate correlation. Detection engineering should therefore ask not only whether a rule works in isolation, but also how its evidence contributes to the broader picture and whether another control can confirm, challenge, or compensate for its conclusion. Reducing detection errors requires testing against known activity. Teams need examples of benign behavior that should not alert, and controlled examples of malicious or policy-violating behavior that should alert. This creates a basis for comparing the tool's output with an expected result. Historical review can also reveal missed events after new intelligence, new rules, or additional context becomes available. That process is sometimes called retrospective detection because analysts look backward to determine whether earlier activity should have been identified. Testing must include the full detection path, not only the rule itself. A well-written rule can still fail when a log source stops reporting, a field changes format, a timestamp is incorrect, or an alert is not routed to the right queue. Ground truth will never be perfect, but deliberate validation makes the uncertainty visible. Without testing, teams may tune based on impressions, complaints, or raw alert counts, rather than evidence about what the detector actually catches and misses. Analyst feedback is one of the most important inputs to detection improvement. When an alert is closed, the outcome should capture more than a generic label such as true or false. Useful feedback identifies why the alert was correct or incorrect, what context resolved the question, how much effort the investigation required, and whether the rule should change. Repeated false positives caused by the same approved application should lead to a focused adjustment, not a broad suppression that hides unrelated activity. A confirmed false negative should trigger a review of visibility, logic, thresholds, and assumptions rather than a simple addition of one narrow indicator. Feedback also helps distinguish a detection problem from a process problem. An accurate alert may still be ineffective if it reaches the wrong team, lacks needed evidence, or arrives too late for a useful response. The improvement loop, therefore, includes data collection, rule design, triage, investigation, disposition, and revision. Detection quality grows through disciplined learning from outcomes. Several common misunderstandings make the balance harder to manage. The first is the belief that a good system should produce no false positives. That expectation often drives teams to suppress alerts until only the most obvious activity remains, increasing the chance that quieter threats will be missed. Another mistake is assuming that a large alert volume proves strong coverage. Volume may reflect broad logic, duplicate signals, or poor tuning rather than meaningful visibility. A third mistake is treating every missed event as proof that the tool failed completely. Detection systems are built for defined data sources, behaviors, and confidence levels, so their limits must be understood before performance can be judged fairly. It is also incorrect to assume that an analyst's closed alert was necessarily false. The available evidence may have been insufficient to confirm the threat, even though the activity deserved attention. Clear definitions, consistent disposition criteria, and documented uncertainty prevent these categories from becoming convenient labels that hide deeper problems.
A practical way to evaluate a detection begins with the decision it is supposed to support. Identify the activity the detector should recognize, the data it depends on, the assets in scope, and the action that follows an alert. Then define what would count as a true positive, false positive, true negative, and false negative for that specific use case. Test the logic with representative benign and harmful activity, and record not only whether the alert appeared, but also whether it contained enough evidence for a timely decision. Review the cost of both errors. Consider the investigation burden created by incorrect alerts and the potential consequence of missed activity. Adjust thresholds, add context, improve data quality, or change the response level rather than simply silencing the rule. Continue measuring results after changes because environments and normal behavior evolve. This method turns tuning into a repeatable risk decision instead of a reaction to whichever alert caused the most recent frustration.
A false positive is an alert about a threat that is not present, while a false negative is a missed alert when a real threat is present. Reducing one can increase the other because many detection systems must decide how much evidence is enough before they act. Lowering the threshold can catch more real activity while increasing noise, and raising it can reduce noise while allowing subtle activity to pass. The right balance is not a universal setting. It depends on the threat, the quality of the available data, the value of the affected asset, the cost of investigation, and the consequence of missing the event. Better context, stronger testing, layered visibility, and disciplined analyst feedback can improve both sides of the equation, but no tool should be treated as infallible. Detection is therefore a managed judgment under uncertainty. The sound practice is to make the trade-off explicit, measure outcomes, and align the alert and response with the risk the organization is prepared to accept.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.